Now we go to the Middle East as President Trump is slamming Iran's latest attempt to end the war.
It comes as the fragile ceasefire is being tested after a cargo ship was struck and set ablaze off of Qatar's coast.
Yep, Chief Correspondent Trey Yingst is live in Tel Aviv with the latest. Trey.
Yeah, hey guys, good morning. President Trump reacted overnight to the Iranian response to the U.S. peace proposal. The president posting on Truth Social, quote, "I have just read the response from Iran's so-called representatives. I don't like it. Totally unacceptable." In another post, he went on to say, in part, "For 47 years, the Iranians have been tapping U.S. along, keeping us waiting, killing our people with their roadside bombs, destroying protests, and recently wiping out 42,000 innocent unarmed protesters and laughing at our now great again country. They will be laughing no longer." Iranian state media reported the response included security of the Strait of Hormuz and an end to the war, but did not address the key Trump administration demand to address Iran's nuclear program. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu echoed a similar sentiment in an interview over the weekend, saying the war isn't over yet because Iran still has nuclear material.
I think it accomplished a great deal, but it's not over because there's still nuclear material, enriched uranium that has to be taken out of Iran. There's still enrichment sites that have to be dismantled. There's still proxies that Iran supports. There are ballistic missiles that they still want to produce. Now, we've degraded a lot of it, but all of that is still there, and there's work to be done.
The Wall Street Journal reports that the latest response doesn't resolve the U.S. demand for commitments in advance on the fate of Iran's nuclear program and its stockpile of highly enriched uranium. Nuclear issues would be negotiated over the next 30 days, they said. Iran proposes to have some of its highly enriched uranium diluted and the rest transferred to a third country, the people said. Now, Reuters reports that a spokesperson for the Iranian Foreign Ministry claimed the response was not excessive and that the United States continues to have unreasonable demands. The demands for the United States are very clear, that Iran will never have a nuclear program and pursue a nuclear weapon. The president has given the Iranians two options: to sign on the dotted line or the war could resume. Guys?
Trey, is the president to believe, does he know who he's dealing with? Is he dealing with the foreign minister and speaker, or is he dealing with the IRGC? Because this latest proposal is a huge step back. I mean, they're not going to turn over their nuclear, 1,000 pounds of nuclear, of enriched uranium. They're going to continue to enrich. I mean, this is a total non-starter. It makes me think the IRGC is taking over.
Yeah, I think the president understands exactly who he's dealing with, despite the fact the Iranians will put forward the foreign minister or Gallup, the parliament speaker, or Iran's president, Masoud Pezeshkian. Behind the scenes, the IRGC, these hardliners, are actually calling the shots, and they are swaying the negotiations so that they could ultimately get what they want. And the president understands that, and that is part of the reason he has called this latest Iranian response unacceptable. And when we talk about the highly enriched uranium, this is very important to dig down into. We're talking about 1,000 pounds of highly enriched uranium at around 60% purity. This is just one step away from 90% purity, which is weapons-grade material. And the Iranians admitted before this began they had enough highly enriched uranium to create 11 nuclear bombs. Well, President Trump heard what they said, and he took them at face value, and that's the reason Operation Epic Fury began. And now, according to the initial reports, they are unwilling to adhere to the terms that were set forward by U.S. negotiators, Special Envoy Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner. And so it puts the United States in a position where they have to go back to the Situation Room and have to make serious considerations about what the Iranians are willing to give up, understanding that the IRGC is controlling things behind the scenes.
So, Trey, we keep hearing two things from the administration about the Gulf states and Pakistan. So Pakistan is essentially saying, hey, wait, there's a deal that can be done. But we also heard over the weekend that the Gulf states were worried about this proposal in the sense when the president was going to do this blockade, try to get folks, some of these ships to go through, and they were afraid that they were going to get attacked. Are they not equipped to respond back?
These Gulf states are very concerned because they really are the front line in this broader war against Iran, understanding that while the Iranians have a limited supply of long-range ballistic missiles that they fired at Israel, for example, and even countries like Turkey, the shorter-range cruise missiles and the drones that they can launch from their coast in these cities like Bandar Abbas or even close to Qeshm Island, it is a major threat to countries like the UAE, Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, and others. And we even saw yesterday the Iranians sent drones over the skies of the UAE and Kuwait as the United States was waiting for the response from the Iranian delegation. And it just shows you how serious Iran is about actually creating a stable situation in the region. And that's not to mention the Strait of Hormuz, where the Iranian Navy, despite the fact the majority of their large ships are at the bottom of the sea, they still have the ability along the coast to launch things like drones and cruise missiles, or even these smaller vessels to try and disrupt international shipping. And so the president not only wants to ensure that there is security in the Strait of Hormuz, despite the fact that the United States doesn't rely as heavily as other countries like the Europeans on this critical waterway, but he also wants to make sure that the Iranians are not pursuing a nuclear weapon. And that involves ensuring that the highly enriched uranium that is already buried deep underground in the aftermath of Operation Midnight Hammer last summer is exported from Iran and taken, according to President Trump, to the United States. But it's also making sure that the centrifuges and the other capabilities that the Iranians maintain are dismantled. And if the Iranians are unwilling to ensure that they cannot move forward with a nuclear program or rebuild in the years ahead, we're likely looking at a situation where the region returns to war.
Unbelievable.
Well, thank you so much, Trey. The whole reason we got involved in this is because of the nuclear weapons that we thought that Iran was capable of making. And we did, and as Trey just said, the president took them at their word, said that they were very close to enriching, full enrichment, and they have enough to create these nuclear weapons. The question is, do we go in and get the enriched uranium? Benjamin Netanyahu said over the weekend, this is not over. There's still work to be done. He said the enriched uranium must be removed from Iran, and he believes that can be done physically. Do the Israelis do it? Do the Americans do it?
Both.
Well, I think it's a joint operation. I will say I was disappointed with Admiral McCraven over the weekend as I saw him on the Sunday shows, and he essentially said that we're not in a better spot than we were before we started this. And he said the reason why is because the strait is essentially closed and that it doesn't look like we have depleted a lot of the missile sites. And then he said because we haven't got the uranium. There is no doubt in my mind, taking out the Ayatollah, a lot of their leadership has put us in a better position. Are we on the 5-yard line? Of course, but the president had to take this action.
But I would say the most disappointing was Senator Mark Kelly. He said the Pentagon is showing a shocking depletion of U.S. munitions, Tomahawks, ATACMS, SM-3 THAADs, and Patriot interceptors from a classified briefing.
I couldn't believe he did that.
So, number one, are you an American first? You fighter pilot, astronaut? Do you really think this works to our advantage to tell the world that we're out of this? Plus, this is a oversimplification. We are out of some things. We're running low. Absolutely. It's something we've known for 10 years. We've been unable to respond to quickly putting together this sophisticated weapons, all right? But there's other things we're not running low on. So at the very least, there are some things, the way you handle in the past, there's some things we're definitely concerned about on the U.S. Armed Services Committee. Got it. He goes and runs through exactly what he says. And Pete Hegseth came back and says, this is another example of you acting irresponsibly, like your dumb move of doing an ad saying to service members, you don't have to obey a unlawful measure. Okay, we're pretty sure that they knew that. Why are you saying it? So this is, again, pure Bruce Springsteen, Robert De Niro-like derangement.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.